Chapter 8. What if there were no bees? Zoe stepped off the bus and spotted Auntie weeding corn in the big field. After she dropped her backpack on the porch, she walked out to the cornfield, dragging her feet across the ground. She didn't look up at her aunt until she was within hugging distance. When she approached Auntie, her eyes were filled with tears. Auntie dropped her hoe, wrapped her arms around Zoe, and let her cry. "Zoe," she asked gently, "what's wrong?" Today, her words tumbled out. "What isn't wrong? I couldn't stop thinking about the bees all week and how I made friends with one. Now all I can think about is what I heard. The bees are in trouble, and if we don't have bees, we won't have food." She could barely get the words out between sobs. "I'm going to starve to death when I'm a grown-up." Auntie held her close and hummed a gentle tune until Zoe's sniffles quieted down. "You are right about the bees needing help. It would be devastating if we didn't have insect pollinators anymore. But there are plants that don't depend on bees for pollination. Let me show you." She reached up and touched the top of a young corn plant where a golden tassel waved in the wind. You probably recognize this tassel on the top of the corn, but do you know what it's for? She shook the plant for emphasis. A cloud of white dust rose into the air and vanished. Zoe sniffed again and shook her head. "I have no idea." "I'll give you a hint. Corn has this tassel instead of a stamen. Therefore, the tassel is for distributing pollen?" she guessed. "Yes, the tassel is the source of pollen in corn." Next, Auntie reached down and touched the young green ear just beginning to form on the corn plant. "And this is the ovary." "Auntie, you're holding an ear of corn," said Zoe. "That's right. The ear is the ovary of the corn plant. The corn silk you see hanging out of the top is the pistil. Well, lots of pistils, because each baby corn seed is connected to one strand of corn silk designed to capture pollen, so the baby seed can grow into a kernel of corn." "But an ear doesn't look like a flower. How is the bee going to know where to bring the pollen?" "Well, that's just it. Bees have nothing to do with pollinating corn." Zoe was quiet for a moment, taking this all in. If not the bees, then who? Just then a strong breeze blew, shaking a puff of white pollen into the air. They watched it dissipate into the wind and vanish. "There it goes," said Auntie. "Off to find some corn silk." Zoe looked out over the corn. "You mean corn pollen travels on the wind?" "That's right. It's smaller and lighter than pollen carried by bees. A good breezy day is all that a wind-pollinated plant needs." "So if we have no bees, Mother Nature won't leave us entirely without food," finished Auntie. "Corn and other grains, spinach, beets, and chard are all wind-pollinated foods." Suddenly, a large blue jay landed on a cornstalk right in front of Zoe, interrupting the lesson. Grasping the top of the plant, the jay tipped his head sideways and glared at her. Their eyes locked, and neither one moved. She felt a strange connection to the bird, and for a moment, she forgot all about being sad. Then the jay tipped his head upward, gave a loud, raucous call, and launched himself from the plant, breaking the spell. Zoe laughed as the jay swooped across the field, calling attention to other jays crisscrossing over the cornfield in the bright afternoon sun. "What are they doing, Auntie?" "I call it listening for the ripeness," she said. "They arrive when the corn is just beginning to tassel. They're pretty loud. until one day they all go quiet and drop into the corn to start feasting. That's my signal that the corn is ripe and ready for harvest. But that's still weeks away. All this talking about food is making me hungry. How about you? Zoe nodded, and together they walked up the hill, leaving the blue jays to dive and scold while waiting for the corn to ripen.